It's homecoming week for the Montreal Canadiens, and one small defenseman is coming home with a big fat contract in his pocket.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as That Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined as I always am by Laura Saba, also known as the actress Sick. Laura, we have news.
We have news.
The Cat Hughes did it again, man. I can't understand how this keeps happening. He pulled it off again. The Montreal Canadiens announced on Monday that they have signed Lane Hutson to an extension for 8 years worth $8.85 million per season for Lane Hutson there. I'm really bummed they didn't put the jersey number in there. That's always a really just stupid, silly thing that they do, and usually it helps the player like come to terms with a contract that maybe they wouldn't otherwise do. But they didn't need it. Laura, how are we feeling now that these small defenseman is ours forever?
I think one of the things the first thing that comes to mind is just what a steal this contract is. I know he's only been playing for 1 year, but I think 2 years from now, this is going to look like one of the most economical contracts for a top defenseman there is. I think, we were all worried that it was going to be like his camp was going to hold out for $10-11 million throughout the offseason. We talked a lot about if it comes in under 10, it's a steal. It didn't just come in under 10, it came in under 9. And I think that's incredible. Like initially, so I was driving to an apple orchard and I got a whole bunch of text and this is all it said. It didn't mention the player. I just got 8 times 8.5 million. 8.85 million, sorry. And I knew I knew it was going to be Leighton Hutson, but for a second I was driving and I was like, am I going to have to pull over and do a short? Like what's going on here, Yeah. And then I did. Unfortunately, we couldn't get out a bonus episode because Ian was working and I was celebrating Thanksgiving. But I think that was the first thing that jumped out was what a steal it was, right? And then if you wait a little bit and you sort of absorb that a little bit, and we are going to talk about this a little bit later about how this helps the Montreal Canadiens, but all of the gossip and the stress and the concern that we had over the last couple of weeks, paying too much attention to rumors and noise, I think like that was all overblown, and we only were able to understand that when we saw what a great team-friendly contract Lane Hutson has signed to. And he's also signed to a Lane Hutson-friendly contract, to be clear.
Yeah. Look, I mean, they went from the rumors of the deferred salary that obviously they couldn't do anymore once they got past a certain date, which would have paid Lane Hutson more money over the course of not over the course of the contract, but at the end of it, he would have made more money. And it kind of makes sense why he would turn that down when in this new contract, it's very bonus heavy. The first 2 years, he gets an $11 million signing bonus in each of the first 2 years. His contract's actual salary doesn't get very high throughout the course of the contract. It's very bonus heavy. So it makes sense why that happened. I do want to give a shout out to our friend, Andrew Berkshire, president of the Game Over Network, who pointed out earlier this weekend, everything's fine. He had it on good authority that things were good, and things were good. So got to tip your cap to Jerkshire on that one. He nailed that one. He's plugged in over there. This is already a steal of a contract. Right now, Lane Hutson is the lowest paid defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens. It's a hilarious thought, but it's true. He's still on his entry-level deal, the only defenseman who's on his entry-level deal. In 26-27, when it kicks in, it will be 8.5% of the cap. The following year, it will be 7.8% of the cap. In today's cap world, in a $95.5 million salary cap, 7.8% is $7.44 million. That would pay him less than Morgan Riley, Condre Miller, and Jared Spurgeon. Like that, those are the defensemen we are looking at him in the terms of when it comes to percentage of the salary cap.
Yes.
So in that respect, it's a really incredible feat that the Canadiens were able to get this done, that the player was happy to sign it. we want to talk about the salary cap structure and culture of the Montreal Canadiens in our second segment. We'll also do our weekly forecast. It's making its return finally in our third segment, breaking down the Canadiens' week at home. But for now, it seems like the last true bit of business for Kent Hughes is done for right now. He's obviously a busy guy. He likes to, start looking for other stuff as soon as he has something to do. Kent, apparently Jeff Gorton nicknamed him the squirrel because he's always looking to do something. He's always moving around looking for. But the Canadiens got this done, and I'll be the first one to say I didn't think this was happening this season. I didn't at the time when we made that prediction. I was like, it doesn't seem like they're all that close. And there should be no pressure on either side to get this done. But, Lane Hutson apparently stepped in and said, I want this done. I want this over with. We're doing this now. Do you think that had anything to do with his start to the season?
No.
I don't think so either.
No.
I think people are like, oh, he's playing poorly because his contract wasn't done.
No, absolutely not. I don't think he cared, to be honest. I really I think that the reason that they had this conversation and that they got it done was so that it would stop being a distraction before it actually became a distraction for Lane Hutson, right? Because eventually you were going to get it to a point where every time there was a post game, somebody was going to stick a mic in his face and say, how about that contract? How's that going, right? And the fact that he has not had as many points as we expected in the first 3 games. I just want to remind everyone it's been 3 games. It's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. But I think that, he himself, he didn't care. He wanted his agent to figure it out with the Montreal Canadiens. And Kent Hughes said a few days ago, he said, it's not stressful. Sometimes things take longer and sometimes things take less time. And from that, what I understood was there was a lot of there's a lot of minutia in the contract to deal with. And so for me, I just feel that Lane Hutson was fine. It was just going to be a point. And I think it probably maybe affected him a little bit when people started talking about whether his family was involved or not. And I think at that point he was like, can we just figure this out so that I don't have to deal with this anymore? Right. But I don't think it was affecting him on the ice. And I think the biggest thing about this is that he just wants to play hockey and he just wants to win. And Kent Hughes said himself, right, that when he talked to Lane and Lane started talking about, how much he's committed to Montreal and all of that. And Kent Hughes was like, let me stop you right there. I don't need any, I know, right? I don't need you to tell me any of this. Both sides, both camps were on the same page. It was just a matter of how many dollars, how many cents, and what days. Right?
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I also completely disagreed with the idea that this was, he was really struggling to start the season.
No, he's not.
And that's why, admittedly, Lane Hutson has said he hasn't liked any of his games to start the year. He does not like the way that he's playing right now. But he also did say that the contract was agreed to, the terms of the contract were agreed to ahead of Saturday's game. Was he any better on Saturday against Chicago? Probably not.
No.
So he knew it was done before that game started, and it didn't make him better automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I think him getting out there on home ice for the home opener and getting that ovation, I think that will help a bit. I think getting his feet under him that way. I was really disappointed that he didn't have his breakout game against Chicago because I think he was too. He grew up in the area. He loved the Chicago Blackhawks growing up. That was his team. So it was almost written perfectly for him to show up in Chicago and just have a lights out game. It didn't happen, obviously. But he's got this off his back. The whole team has this behind them, although I don't really know how much it bothered the rest of them. And it's time. It's time now that they can put this behind them. This is a very important season, not only for Lane Hutson, but for the Canadiens. And it's time to focus on that. Any final thoughts here on the contract before we go into what this means for the Montreal Canadiens in our next segment?
I just think it was funny that they agreed to the terms on Saturday, but on Saturday, what we were hearing about was both sides have decided to stop talking to the media. So
yeah, they decided to stop talking in general because the contract was done. That's what they forgot to leave. That's what they left out.
That was really funny. I don't know. I feel like at this point, sometimes we just have to take everything with a grain of salt and not lose our heads over it. Because I said, it's an 82 game season, but also this Canadiens window is going to be a long time. once they get into that actual true cup contending window, it's going to be a long time. And we need to be able to deal with this emotional roller coaster, because some years the reality is they're not going to make it. Some years they're going to get kicked out in the first round unexpectedly by an upset team. Some years they're going to go all the way and maybe not actually get the cup. So we got to temper our expectations, and we can't be losing our heads with every single thing that comes out about this team.
Nope, absolutely. And I'll leave this on. There's only one Mitch Marner. Not every contract negotiation is a Mitch Marner situation. Only one of them was that, and it was him. And look, he bolted the first opportunity he got. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we'll talk about how this fits in with the rest of the Canadian salary cap structure and the culture that they are building in Montreal. We'll get into all that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put $5 down, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Look, I love using FanDuel. Everybody knows, if you've listened to the show, you know I love the props. I love parlays, building props out of anytime touchdown on Sundays. You pick a couple from each game. Keeps me interested in watching all of those. And it lets me double down on my fantasy team. I get to watch those guys help me out in that respect and help me cash in on some of those parlays. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, we're back. Let's talk about how this fits in with the rest of what the Canadiens have done, that being the Lane Hutson contract extension. The Canadiens have a way of conducting these contract negotiations where they don't get to a point where we are hearing things leaking into the media, right? It didn't happen with Cole Caulfield. The only thing we had heard was they were looking at like the Matt Boldy extension as like a high watermark for him. We heard nothing about Slavkovsky's. We heard nothing about Caden Gooley's. Hudson's was the most it leaked out, and it really, like, in the grand scheme of things, wasn't all that bad. I think a lot of the whole his dad is involved thing was overblown by a bunch of people in the national media who aren't as plugged into what's going on in Montreal as they would like to admit. So with all that, like, it seems like Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have really mastered this concept of negotiating with their own players and getting them to buy into the idea that you will get what you are owed, but this team only works if we can pay all of you. And if you shake us down every time you come up for a contract, someone else has to go, or you have to go. Like those are the two options. Do you think this is sustainable long term for the Canadiens to be doing?
I think it really depends on if the players are winning or not, right?
Yeah.
Because this market is a little bit different than other markets, because in this market, your fourth liner can get an endorsement deal and make money off of that, right? I think that that's not necessarily true of all markets, but I think in Montreal, you have that opportunity. So if you are a Montreal Canadian, there's other avenues of income for you that are outside of what your team legally is allowed to pay you, or the maximum that they're able to give you. So I do think that in part helps, but I think overall these players want to win, right? And you've seen players throughout the history of the league where they make a lot of money, but then they have nothing left at the end of it because they trusted the wrong people, or that they didn't have the right people looking after their interests and things like that. So like there are other equalizers at play here. But I do think that at the end of the day, the Montreal Canadiens are selling a vision to these people. And I think that it's only going to bite them in the butt in the future if they can't put together a winning team, if they can't put together a team like a Florida or a Tampa of a couple of years ago, or of the Chicago Blackhawks of 10 years ago, or, I can't think of another team that or Colorado, quite frankly.
Tampa
that's
Bay.
Another one. Yeah, I did say Tampa.
Did you say Tampa?
Yeah,
I mean, there's enough examples out there that this is a winning formula.
Yes.
And it's a big if they're the right guys, right? The whole thing about them, and I said this a few episodes ago now, the whole thing about telling players to take less so you can win is that they take up their end of the bargain when they take less. But if you don't win, they're going to leave upset.
Yes. Yeah. and then they're going to fleece you in the next deal, or they're going to leave the second they get a chance to,
Right.
or it's going to turn toxic. And so I do want to point to Toronto as an example. I think the biggest thing that went wrong with Toronto more than anything else was cap mismanagement, right?
Yeah.
They had talented players. Yes, there were some depth issues, right? I don't think they paid enough attention to the depth of their defense. I don't think they paid enough attention to goaltending. I don't think they paid enough attention to the bottom six for that matter, right? So, but they're like, that team could have put together a winning team if it wasn't constantly bogged down in these salary cap negotiations or these salary negotiations that held the team and the cap hostage. Like, it was massive mismanagement on that front. And so how are you supposed to come up with a winner if that's the way? And obviously there's some personnel issues involved as well. Maybe Mike Babcock was a toxic person to have in that locker room. And so I think the Montreal Canadiens are very conscious of the fact that this could go wrong very fast, and that they have to, when they're selling a vision to this team, they have to eventually deliver in the next couple of years. They have to deliver. And so,
yeah,
I think it's not going to bite them in the butt as long as they can put together a winner.
Yeah, I think, nailing the 3 previous contracts. Suzuki was under the old management. It was great that they got him to that contract, but even when they signed him to that contract, it was still like, that's market value for what we think this player would be. It wasn't like a team-friendly deal. It was, he's got a hit for that to be the thing that we think it is. But Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Gooley, all of those guys coming in at a reasonable number, right? That set the expectations for the rest of that team in a way that the Toronto Maple Leafs never were able to do, because they just always watched the next guy show up and shake down their general manager for more and more money. Like, it was nice that they brought in John Tavares, but like, he came in making $11 million in a flat cap world. Like, that was not a reasonable thing to do. Yes, it made them a better team, but the next time everyone's contract came around, it's like, well, you gave John 11, and he wanted to come here and you gave him 11. I'm worth more than that. I want more than that, So it just became, next guy shakes down the general manager. You don't get that sense that this will happen. And you don't get the sense that they're going to do anything to jeopardize that. Because looking forward, next summer, they will have $27.8 million in cap space, with Doc, Veleno, Bolduc, Matheson, and Arbor left to sign. You can throw Patrick Laine in there as well. I don't think Patrick Laine is coming back. If these first 3 games are any indication of where the Canadiens see him as part of their long-term plans, Patty, we will miss you, but I just don't think that this is something that's long-term. After that, they have $63 million in cap space. And really, it's just Reinbacher and Demidov who are part of the known parts of their core who will need to be locked up. Not only have the Canadiens set themselves up for success in the immediate, it's time to take a swing now. Like, it's time to start looking at, okay, we know we have cost control. This core is a known quantity. It's time to take a swing on something that can make this team a contender every single year. Now, is that another defenseman? Maybe, but I think it's that second line center, or maybe a guy who can be a first line center, and now you have 2 of them. Like,
there was a Buffalo jersey thrown on the ice today.
Man, and Scott takes, I think, great pride in telling us whenever that sort of thing happens. I think that Tage Thompson in Montreal would be one of the funniest outcomes in all of this. I don't think it happens, but that's exactly the kind of player I'm talking about when I say it's time to take a swing. You grab a guy who, yes, has a big cap hit, but he's a really, really, really great player.
He's a known quantity.
He's a known quantity, and he's under that cap, that salary control for that period of time. Like, that's what you need to start swinging on. The problem is that everybody's going to have cap space coming into the next few years, right? Like, the cap is going up for everybody. But the one edge that you can have is having a team that can win.
Yes.
And the fact that the Canadiens have all these young guys coming in who should be cashing in. Like, Cole Caulfield should have cashed in. Lane Hutson could have gotten 10 somewhere on the open market. And instead, they're all deciding, no, it's better if we're all here winning. I think that's going to be contagious. That's going to be the part of this that has the staying power for this Canadiens culture, is that they all want to win and they want to do it here.
Yeah.
That's so important. I've never seen anything like this in my time following this team, right? Like it's unheard of in Montreal that these guys are coming in and going, you know what? We feel like we can win here if we all just get what we're owed, but not get exorbitant amounts of money.
Yeah. I think that's true. And when you said, everyone's going to be playing with cap space next year, but not everyone has palm trees, Ian.
Yeah, no, they don't have palm trees, but you know what we should have is a statue for Kent Hughes outside the building already. Like I was so very skeptical of him in this kind of role. It always made sense in the sense that like, oh, he's a former agent. He knows what players and teams both want. Like he gets that aspect of it. But I always wondered, like, in practice, will this actually work?
Yeah.
And I think we're done deliberating on that. He's an excellent general manager, one of the best in the league. It's only a matter of time before this team is a legit contender, and it'll be because of the very shrewd moves that Kent Hughes has made. I would hate to be in a negotiation with this guy as an agent because it seems like all of his players really like him. They really like the fact that they're working for this guy.
Yeah, it's also like he seems to be the kind of guy that's going to annoy you into submission. Right?
Oh,
if you're an agent, if you're an opposing GM, he's going to annoy you into submission.
Losing general managers have to hate seeing his name pop up on their phone. Like, like if I'm like last year, Nashville, why did Nashville pick up the phone when they were like, hey, we want to talk Justin Barron, Alex Carrier? Should not have picked up the phone. That's a crazy call to take from Kent Hughes. The only general manager, the only team in the league that really I would like him to stop doing business with would be the Colorado Avalanche. Just stop doing that, please. Stop calling McFarland and Sakic. Don't do it anymore. All right. We'll leave that there and we come back. It's time for the weekly forecast. It's back. Montreal's got 3 home games this week. We'll break them down and tell you who we think is going to be our standout star for the Habs in the week to come. We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together all in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you, so you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I've always thought that I was saving as much as I possibly could. Monarch really helped me notice that wasn't true. It helped me notice inefficient investment allocations and find forgotten 401ks from previous jobs. It's been really helpful in finding the things I couldn't see. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL and monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, it's time. The weekly forecast is back. The Montreal Canadiens have a full schedule of games this week, 3 games, all at home, including the home opener on Tuesday night, as you are listening to this, tonight against the Seattle Kraken. So let's start there. Seattle comes to Montreal. Seattle's undefeated to start the year, 2-0, including, I believe, an overtime winner against the Vegas Golden Knights. So they've had a pretty, that's a pretty big win for a team like Seattle. The Kraken were 35-41-6 last year for 76 points. The Canadiens were not very successful against Seattle last year. 0-1-1 versus Seattle. Seattle outscored Montreal 13-6 in those 2 games, including an 8-2 loss in Montreal and a 5-4 overtime loss in Seattle. Brandon Montour haunted the Canadiens last year. In those 2 games, he had 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists, and had the overtime game winner in that second game. Slavkovsky had 2 goals in that last game. So far this year, Matty Beniers and Vince Dunn lead the way for the Kraken with 3 points in their 2 games. Where's your head at on the Kraken this year? Are you worried that we're going to see a repeat of last year, that they walk in and just completely blow the doors off the Bell Center on the home opener?
I don't know that that's going to happen, but I do think that the Canadiens are going to struggle with this game just because of the emotional component of the night. Just in general, like you see this with we saw it in so many home openers this season with other teams, right? The Canadiens have advised fans to be in their seats by 6:50 p.m. in order to be able to witness the proceedings, and they're going 2 minutes over the deadline to actually drop the puck, which is, I believe, 7:17. So they're planning to go over by 2 minutes and eat a $20,000 fine for this. So the Canadiens have a lot planned, right? Like there's going to be player introductions. There's probably going to be something to do with torches. And then they have to do a Ken Dryden tribute. And when I say have to do, I mean they're happy to do it, and we are happy to. But you can't not do it on the first night that you're playing after he passes away. So there's going to be an emotional component, and no matter what iteration of this team we have seen, and we've seen it in other NHL teams as well. When something like this happens, it's really hard to get into the game. So I do think that they are going to struggle. I don't think that the Seattle Kraken are going to blow the doors off of the Bell Center, just like the Canadiens kind of did to Detroit. I do feel, though, that this is a team that they're going to have to pay attention to because, again, there's that Habs killer factor in there. And I do think that this is an opportunity for the first line to kind of show why it was one of the best lines in the league last year.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that you've said. I think there's a chance that the Canadiens have like a sort of sleepy start to this one, but I'm kind of banking on the opposite. I think getting their feet wet with 3 on the road, I think, when they like last year, their home opener, I believe, was the first night of the season. It's a different environment. You're showing up into that game coming from the speed and intensity of a preseason game, which is to say not very much at all, especially as that preseason ended. There was just them beating the crap out of each other. There was no real hockey to be played. To now when they've played, 3 pretty intense hockey games to this point. 2 divisional games, 1 close loss, 1 big win, and then the win in Chicago, where very weird game. They spent the entirety of it on the power play. There's always a chance for a slow start, but I'm not anticipating that for the Canadiens. I think they'll come out and they'll kind of have a Pavlovian response to this is what the playoffs felt like, and they'll be in a better headspace to handle that than I think the Seattle Kraken, who are a young team who haven't had that experience together. They had the playoffs the second year that they were in the NHL, but I don't know necessarily that this will be a slow start for Montreal. All right, let's keep it moving here. Thursday, Nashville comes to town. It seems like Montreal has a very Western Conference heavy schedule to start the year. Nashville's 2-0-1 to start the season. They just beat Ottawa on Monday afternoon, so they're on their way to Montreal. 30, 44, and 8 last year for 68 points. The Canadiens were 2-0 against the Preds last year, a 3-0 shutout win in Montreal, where Montembeault gets a 29-save shutout. Jake Evans has 2 points. And a 2-1 win in Nashville, where Jakub Dobeš was impressive, 36 for 37 in that game. The Preds are led this year by Marchessault, Haula, and Forsberg, who each have 3 points. But the real story for me is Juuse Saros. Opening night, 38 for 39 versus Columbus, 23 for 20 versus Utah in their overtime loss, and then again, 31 for 32 against Ottawa. Saros looks like he's returning to form. The Predators last year, their big problem was they could not score to save their lives. So I would expect a pretty low event game here against Nashville. What are you watching for against the Predators?
I'm watching for Zach Goldyk. That's what I'm watching for. I feel like if anyone's going to get through Juuse Saros, he's going to find a way. I think one of the biggest things that we haven't seen from the Canadiens is really an opportunity for them to have an extended consistency. But what I mean by that is that they were really tired against Detroit, right? They played really well against Toronto. They were really tired against Detroit. And we have no reason to think that their game against Chicago would not have been like that Toronto one had they not been given so many power plays. So like what I want to see is like, can they replicate that effort against Toronto, against like all the teams are seeing this week?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's tough a lot of times to manufacture sort of intensity against teams you don't see all that often, especially one like Nashville, who there's no sort of ill will between those two teams. But I do think that that's always, you just want to make sure that they keep their foot on the gas. It's that these sorts of Western Conference team coming into Montreal early in the season, it has like bad vibes to it for some reason. All right, last game of the week, Saturday night. The New York Rangers are in town. The Rangers are 2-2-0 to start the year, but both of their losses have been shutout losses. If they do not score, if they whenever they lose, they're not scoring at all. Like it's kind of it's an odd way to go. One against Washington, which kind of makes sense, but one was against Pittsburgh in the opener. Yes. That shouldn't happen. Last year, the Canadiens were 1-2-0 against the Rangers, 7-2 loss and a 5-4 overtime loss were both in Montreal. Our overtime win, by the way, were both in Montreal. The 4-3 loss also came in New York. If you remember, that game was a complete nightmare. That it was less palatable than the 7-2 loss because the officiating in that game at Madison Square Garden was among the worst I think any of us have ever seen. It felt like the fix was in as that game was happening. And I hate saying that because there definitely wasn't, but they were horrific in that game. That they single-handedly cost the Canadiens points in that one. Fox is back to a point per game. He's got 4 points in 4 games for the Rangers. Shesterkin is a 976 in his first 3 games. What are you looking at against the Rangers?
I honestly, I need the Canadiens to score early. I need them to do that, and I need them to because I'm assuming that they're going to start Shesterkin on a Saturday night at the Bell Center, right? So I need them to score early. I need Samuel Montalban not to let in his softie from 100 feet.
Yeah, that's a good segue here because I think Dobish is getting one of these games.
Yes, Nashville, I think.
You think I also think it's the Nashville game because he has a pedigree of success. I mean, he has the one game against them, but 36 for 37, I think is what I said it was in that game last year. That is something I'm watching for this week because Montembeault has won. He's 1-1. He did not look great in that Chicago game. I didn't think that I didn't think he was in position a lot of the time. The goal that he gave up, one of the goals he gave up, he just completely lost his net on a face-off play. It just shouldn't happen. I wonder how long it is before we're talking about Jakub Dobish being in a 1A, 1B situation in Montreal. Because I just think Dobish had a fantastic preseason, and his first game was also electric. And I think if he starts to string those together and Montembeault still has that air of maybe he's not fully there yet, I think we're talking about it sooner rather than later. Let's make a prediction for your star of the week. At the end of the week, who are you looking at going, this guy was the reason the Canadiens were great this week?
I'm going to say Cole Caulfield.
It really does feel like that top line is just about to blow up, huh?
Yeah.
I've liked their play at 5-on-5. I think that power play unit is getting closer. They scored both their goals, so I would hope, in Chicago, they scored both their goals, so I would hope that they're getting there. But I think you're right. I think if they're clicking this week, it's because the top line. I'll say Lane Hutson. Lane Hutson, even though I disagreed with the premise that his contract was what was holding him back, the narrative there is too easy to avoid. So I'm going to say Lane Hutson at the end of the week has 5 points in 3 games, and we're all going, yeah, he's back.
You're I reject that premise.
I do, and but I will also use it when it's appropriate and convenient for me.
Yes. Okay. So I'm actually excited about this week. I feel like this is going to be a week where things are going to be less weird and a little bit more. We can see what this team is. Yeah. I think. All right. It's time for trivia. So yesterday we had a follow that player, and I should have prepared this because I know the answer.
I think I can do it from memory, Laura.
You can do it from memory. All right, go for it.
It was Montreal, New York Islanders, Philadelphia Flyers,
yes,
Pittsburgh Penguins,
yes,
Montreal Canadiens.
Yes. Who was that player?
And that was one Mark Streit.
Yes.
One of the funniest, one of my favorite answers in that respect. Yes. I'm a big fan of that.
He's a guy we like to remember. We might have used him in a different way for a different trivia question.
Yeah, we'll probably do it in a few weeks. It's not a big deal.
Again. So Super Rain was the only one who answered that correctly this time around. And today's trivia question is, it might be not super easy to dig up, but it has been mentioned in the last few days. So as you know, Zach Bolduc is a Montreal Canadiens player who has scored a goal in each of his first 3 games, who was the last player to score a goal in each of his first 3 games with Montreal. So give us the answer. That's our trivia question for the day.
You heard her. If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Send it to us any way you know how. We'll shout you out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for tuning in, for making us your first list of the day. for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. They're back in full swing with the NHL underway. We are sending in our shorts to them, so you're getting our instant reaction as well as instant reaction from the other 31 teams across the league. So make sure you're tuning into that every day after our show. Of course, we're more important. You should be listening to this one, but definitely go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. You can find the show Locked On Canadiens just about everywhere we're posting things: Bluesky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com to send us anything, fan mail, mailbag questions. We do a mailbag every Friday, so send in your mailbag questions whenever you think of them. And we love to hear from you guys. It's really one of our favorite things is to open that and see that you guys are interacting with us. So thank you for doing so. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow night after the home opener.